The pen trembled in Marcus Webb's hand as he stared at the bankruptcy papers spread across his mahogany desk. 23 years of building Webb Industries from a garage startup to a $100 million manufacturing company, and it all came down to this moment. One signature, and everything would be gone. His reflection stared back at him from the floor-to-ceiling windows of his corner office, a man who looked 20 years older than his 52 years. The dark circles under his eyes told the story of sleepless nights, of frantic phone calls to investors who'd already written him off, of watching his employees' faces when he had to announce the layoffs. 300 families depending on him, and he'd failed them all. The numbers didn't lie. The accounting firm had gone over everything 3 times. A perfect storm of supply chain disasters, a major client's bankruptcy, and a fraudulent contractor who'd disappeared with $2 million had left Webb Industries bleeding money. The lawyers said bankruptcy was the only option. Start over, they said, as if 23 years could be erased and rebuilt like a sandcastle on a beach. Marcus uncapped his fountain pen, the same one his father had given him when he'd started the company. His hand moved toward the signature line, but he couldn't quite make himself touch the paper. Not yet. Just one more minute of being the CEO of something, even if that something was about to cease to exist. A soft knock interrupted the silence. "Come in," he said, his voice hoarse from lack of sleep. The door opened, and Maria, his secretary of 15 years, stepped inside with an apologetic expression. "Mr. Webb, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but there's a situation in the lobby." Marcus almost laughed. A situation? What could possibly make things worse than they already were? "There's a little girl," Maria continued. "She's been here for almost an hour with a woman who I think is her grandmother. They're asking to see you. The grandmother says it's urgent, that it's about the company." "Maria, I don't have time for." "I know, sir. I told them that several times. But the little girl." Maria's voice softened. "She's been sitting there with a piggy bank, refusing to leave. She says she needs to help save the company. I didn't have the heart to have security remove them." Marcus closed his eyes. A child with a piggy bank. The universe had a cruel sense of humor. "Give me 5 minutes, then send them up. The papers can wait that long." He turned his chair to face the window, looking out over the city where he'd built his dreams. The factory floors below were mostly empty now, the machinery silent. In a week, the building would belong to the creditors, and the skeleton crew still working would join the 300 he'd already let go. The knock came again, lighter this time. "Mr. Webb." Maria's voice preceded the opening door. "This is Mrs. Patricia Chen and her granddaughter, Lily." Marcus turned, forcing what he hoped was a welcoming expression. An elderly woman in a worn but clean coat stood in the doorway, her hand on the shoulder of a small girl with pigtails and bright, intelligent eyes. The child clutched a ceramic piggy bank painted to look like a rainbow. "Mr. Webb, I apologize for barging in like this, Mrs. Chen began, her accent carrying traces of her Chinese heritage. "My granddaughter insisted. Her mother worked, in your quality control department." "Sarah Chen." Marcus's chest tightened. Sarah Chen. A single mother, brilliant worker, always the first to volunteer for overtime to provide for her daughter. He'd had to let her go 3 weeks ago. "Mrs. Chen, I'm so sorry about your daughter's position. If there was any way." "That's not why we're here," the elderly woman interrupted gently. "Show him, Lily." The little girl stepped forward with a solemnity that seemed far too old for her small frame. She couldn't have been more than 5 or 6. She carefully set the piggy bank on his desk with a soft thunk. "Sir, my mommy said you're a good man," Lily said in a clear, earnest voice. "She said you gave her a job when nobody else would, even though she didn't have much experience. She said you paid for her to take night classes so she could get promoted. She said when I was sick last year, you made sure she could work from home and still got paid." Marcus felt something crack in his chest. He remembered Sarah's daughter's illness, a frightening bout with pneumonia that had required hospitalization. "Your mother is a wonderful person," Marcus managed. "She deserved all of that. My mommy cried when she had to leave," Lily continued, her small voice unwavering. "But she said it wasn't your fault. She said sometimes bad things happen to good people. She said you cried too when you had to tell everyone." Marcus had cried. In this very office, after they'd all left, he'd put his head in his hands and wept. Lily pushed the piggy bank toward him. I have $63.42. I've been saving for a bike, but mommy needs her job more than I need a bike. I want to help save the company. Grandma says every little bit counts. The room went silent. Marcus stared at the rainbow piggy bank, at this child who was willing to sacrifice her dreams for her mother, for him, for 300 families she'd never met. He felt something wet on his cheeks and realized he was crying. Lily, that's very kind, but I can't. Sir, you missed this number. The words stopped him cold. What? Lily pointed at the bankruptcy papers on his desk. Her small finger landed on a line in the financial summary. You missed this number. You're not supposed to sign papers with mistakes. Mrs. Chen spoke softly. Lily has a gift with numbers. Her teachers say she can spot patterns and errors that others miss. She was looking at the papers while you were talking. Marcus leaned forward, following the child's finger. It was pointing at a line item buried in the third page of the financial statement. Receivables, pending, $0. His heart began to pound. Maria, get Jennifer from accounting up here. Now. 3 minutes later, his CFO stood in the office, looking confused and exhausted. Marcus pointed to the line. Jennifer, explain this. Why are pending receivables listed as 0? Jennifer squinted at the paper. Pending receivables should be, wait. Her face went pale. Oh my God. Marcus, the Stevenson contract. The 30-day payment. It completed last week, but with all the chaos. She pulled out her phone, fingers flying across the screen. It should have moved from pending to received, but I think in the transition with the layoffs. She looked up, and Marcus saw hope dawn in her eyes for the first time in months. Marcus, the Stevenson payment was $3.2 million. If it cleared and wasn't recorded in the bankruptcy assessment. The room seemed to tilt. Marcus grabbed his phone, calling the company's bank directly. Each ring felt like an eternity. When the manager confirmed that yes, a payment of $3.2 million had been deposited 6 days ago, Marcus felt his knees weaken. $3.2 million wouldn't save the company entirely, but it was enough. Enough to pay the most critical creditors. Enough to keep the lights on. Enough to restructure instead of dissolve. Enough to bring his people back. He turned to Lily, this tiny human being who had noticed what dozens of lawyers and accountants had missed. Lily, you just saved 300 jobs. You saved this company. The little girl smiled, but then her face grew serious again. Does this mean my mommy can come back to work? Yes, Marcus said, his voice breaking. Your mommy and everyone else. Because of you. Mrs. Chen's eyes glistened with tears. Lily looked at her piggy bank, then back at Marcus. Can I still give you the $63? Just in case. Marcus knelt down to her level, carefully picking up the piggy bank and placing it in her small hands. Lily, you keep this. Buy yourself the best bike you can find. But I want to do something else, if that's okay with you and your grandmother. He stood and walked to his desk, pulling out his checkbook. I'm setting up a college fund in your name. Full scholarship to any university you choose. Because someone as brilliant and kind as you deserves every opportunity in the world. As Marcus wrote the check, he thought about how close he'd come to signing those papers. How he'd been so buried in despair that he'd almost missed the miracle hiding in the numbers. A 5-year-old child had saved him not just with her gift for patterns, but with her reminder of why he'd started this company in the first place. Not for the money, not for the success, but for people like Sarah Chen, who needed a chance. For families who depended on steady work. For communities built on the foundation of people taking care of each other. 3 months later, Web Industries was still standing. The creditors had been paid, employees had been rehired, and Marcus had implemented new financial oversight procedures to ensure no number ever got missed again. On his desk, beside his father's fountain pen, sat a small photo of a girl with pigtails, sitting on a bright blue bike, her smile as radiant as a rainbow. Sometimes salvation comes from the most unexpected places, in the smallest voices, from the purest hearts. And sometimes, all it takes to change everything is someone who cares enough to say, "Sir, you missed this number."